What's up, everyone? It's time to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is drifting. Drifting is one of the most satisfying things you can do with a car, and the feeling of successfully sliding around an entire track sideways is a high unlike any other. But I hear you in the comments, I don't even own a car that can drift. Well, let's change that, because here are 5 awesome drift-ready machines for sale today that you can go buy for under $5,000.
BMW E46.
Does it get any more obvious than the BMW E46 3 Series? Well, no it doesn't. That's why I bought this one for $1,500 a couple years ago. Rear-wheel drive, inline-6 power, and a huge aftermarket support and tons of vehicles to choose from, the E46 is the go-to choice for an easy-to-find, ready-made drift car with that timeless classic BMW styling. The US got 323s, 325s, 328s, and 330i's. You can forget about the M3 at this price point because a $5,000 E46 M3 will be a train wreck. Of the bunch, the one to go for is obviously the 330i. You can get it in either a coupe or sedan body styles, and both are readily available with manual transmissions. Fortunately, BMW sold so many E46 3 Series in the US that there isn't actually much of a price difference, at least locally, between all the different variants, so picking up a 330 is a no-brainer choice compared to its lesser-engined brothers. Unfortunately, E46 engines don't pick up a ton of power with basic bolt-on upgrades, but a 330i will still easily make over 200 wheel horsepower with headers and a good tune, which is plenty for most drift events. E46s get a bad rap for their reliability, and it's true, they aren't Honda Civic levels of reliable, but with the right preemptive maintenance and some reliability upgrades handled, they can be near bulletproof drift weapons like this car is. The big thing to check on every single E46 out there is actually the rear floor panel before you buy one of these cars. That's because the rear subframe, which holds on the suspension and the differential, can actually tear out of the sheet metal due to fatigue and old age. The aftermarket makes welded reinforcement plates that prevent this from happening. It's a good long weekend project, and while you're under there, you can also replace all the suspension bushings. Once that's out of the way, throw a welded differential in the car and get to shredding. Oh, and don't forget to replace your cooling system every couple of years. Happy drifting!
BMW E36.
The next most obvious choice is the predecessor to the E46, the last of the boxy beauties, the E36 BMW 3 Series. $5,000 can just get you into an M3, but for drift duty, skip it and buy a regular old 328i instead. That's the pro move. You see, the US spec M3 engine is pretty much just a spicier version of the 320i's inline-6. Throw some headers, cams, an M50 intake manifold, and a good tune at that cheap 328i, and enjoy a reliable 200 plus wheel horsepower all day. As an added bonus, the E36 is a couple £100 lighter than an E46, so that power goes even further in keeping you sideways and keeping those rear tires smoking. As you would expect from an older model, the E36 is more simple than an E46, electronically and mechanically. However, they also do have similar chassis fatigue issues. So Google E36 chassis reinforcement, buy one of everything, and replace all the suspension bushings. After that, like the E46, it should last forever, and also like the E46, and unlike every single 240SX out there, it will be a more comfortable car and probably still have ice-cold AC and basic creature comforts that make driving to and from drift events way easier.
Ford Mustang GT.
We all know that Mustangs are good at a few things, like burnouts, and doing burnouts into crowds. But recently they've also become very popular choices in the drift community, and I love seeing that American muscle representation in the house. Now, it might sound like an odd pick, but V8 cars are just so much fun in their own way, especially when it comes to the power and the sound department. $5,000 will get you easily into an SN95 or New Edge era Mustang GT. That's the 1994 to 1998 cars and the 1999 to 2004 gen cars. A big part of this is going to boil down to personal preference, as you can get into an early SN95 car that has the venerable 5.0 V8, or a later car that has the 4.6 2-valve V8 also used in the new Edge Mustang. Unfortunately, that 4.6 V8 is a bit of a limp noodle, at least by V8 standards. The 2-valve motor, which refers to the number of valves per cylinder, is rated at 260 horsepower and 302 pound-feet of torque. Now that is plenty to get the rear tires smoking, but don't expect a lot more from that engine if you do get power hungry, because there just isn't a ton to be gained from basic bolt-on upgrades. But on the upside, they do sound absolutely amazing with headers or a louder exhaust. Both the SN95 and the new Edge Mustang share very similar suspension and chassis design, and that's because they both roll on the same Fox platform. That, as a result, means they both have massive aftermarket support for all kinds of motorsport, and more recently have become popular in drifting too. And that's because they are some of the cheapest and most reliable V8 cars you can get into. And despite having a solid rear axle, these things can actually slide pretty well, and there are a handful of solid aftermarket angle kit options out there to get all your steering angle, which is unfortunately a necessity in the Mustang community because unlike a lot of BMWs and European cars, most Mustangs do not have much in the way of steering angle from the factory. Now between the two, I'm going to give the edge, pun totally intended, to the new Edge Mustang. It's a newer car and less likely to be beat up, and because Ford made so many variants of it, the Ford factory parts bin is absolutely huge. And for this gen of car in particular, bonus points if you can find some Terminator front end parts, because those things look super tough and menacing. Also, bonus points because they are one of the few cars that can legitimately pull off blacked out taillights and look good doing it. Think about that for a second.
Nissan 350Z.
The champ is here!
The champ is here!
It sounds like a swarm of bees trapped inside an angry trombone, and it's become the most ubiquitous modern car in drifting today. It's the Nissan 350Z. Fair warning, this is the undisputed best drift car of the bunch, and pretty much anyone who has spent much time at the track at all with these things will tell you so. Now your $5,000 has you square in the 2003 to 2005 era of the Z33 350Z. These earlier 350Zs are packing the VQ35DE engine, which is good for 287 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque, which does make it the most powerful option on the list, sorry to the Mustang. Just watch out for oil consumption because these early VQ engines do love to burn through it. Fortunately, they are pretty robust engines overall, and they do have the value of coming with a very, very strong 6-speed manual transmission, the CD009. Now, most people like to go for the 2007 Plus models, which have the newer, higher revving VQ35HR engine that revs at 7,500 RPM. But the power differences between the different models isn't going to make or break you either way. The Z33 chassis is super solid, and aftermarket support is pretty much unparalleled. It also helps the 350Z has huge fenders that can just swallow up wheel and tire. So if you want to get out there and be a hot boy with an 18x12 wheel and a stretched 255 tire, the Z can do that. More practically though, it also means that wheel fitment in general is going to be a piece of cake with these cars, and that means that super low offset wheels, that poke out really far and improve your chassis clearance at full steering lock with your sick angle kit, will fit no problem. If you haven't already noticed, your favorite YouTube drifters probably all own or have owned a 350Z because it's just easy mode. It's the easy button for reliable, consistent drifting. Weld the diff, get an angle kit, and consider maybe adding a hydraulic handbrake to lock the rear wheels up better on initiation, and you've got a ready-to-rock drift car that can hang with considerably more powerful and wild machines while sideways.
Nissan 240SX.
Oh boy. It is with much disdain that I bring you up car number 5 on this list, the ass end of the list, which is exactly where this car belongs. I'm only including this because the people that live on Reddit's R cars would scream and protest otherwise. It's the Nissan 240SX. The Nissan S13 and S14, sold from 1989 to 1998, are the most ubiquitous cars in drifting. They've been prominently featured in video games, movies, and YouTube drift fail compilations. While much of the rest of the world got the 180SX or the Silvia, the US got the 240SX instead. Those cars had a 1.8-liter turbo CA engine or a kick-ass SR20 DET. That little hot boy was a 2-liter turbo 4 that could very easily make a super reliable 250 horsepower all day. The 240SX, on the other hand, got a 2.4-liter non-turbocharged 4-cylinder engine pulled out of a Nissan pickup truck. Or an Altima. Take your pick. They made about 160 horsepower, which was fairly impressive stuff for back in the day, but obviously not nearly as cool as those turbocharged engines we didn't get here. Now, regardless of power, the 240 does have a very balanced chassis with a slight preference for oversteer out of the box. So naturally, they make great drift cars and great track cars in general. The 240 has, without a doubt, the most insane aftermarket support of all time. Because so many of these cars were crashed at the track or interlocal gutter whenever it rained. Every sort of adjustable suspension piece in the world exists for a 240. All in the hopes that your crash-damaged ride will one day align right and drive down the road in a straight line again. But fair warning, they never do. This venomous hot take comes from the fact that I've owned 2 S13s over the years, and they were both complete piles of hot garbage. The chassis on both cars were completely trashed after their obligatory 18-owner stints, and while the cars are very easy to work on, they just aren't that reliable through a combination of age, neglect, and general abuse. And all of this is because there's definitely a specific kind of person who is drawn to the 240SX, especially the earlier, cheaper S13 cars. And they aren't known for their generous spending or their ideologies on preventative maintenance, or really any sort of maintenance at all. 240s have become increasingly rare on the market today, with so many of them being decimated by their owners. Now, I picked up both of my cars for around $1,000 in mostly running condition, but that was years ago. Today, I was able to find one running 240 within 100 miles of LA for under $5 grand. It was $4,500, rattle can flat black, and had a cons list way longer than the pros list. But they said it did run, so that's something. If you're dead set on a 240, prepare to pay for the privilege. In fact, prepare to pay closer to 10 grand at this point, just because all the cheap ones are such garbage. A 10 grand 240 will likely be a pretty nice car with most likely an engine swap like an SR20 or maybe even a Toyota 1J, a nice body kit, and some sweet wheels. It probably still won't be as reliable as some of the other cars in this list, but the 240 kids would be furious and frothing at the mouth if I didn't mention their beloved Nissan. So there it is, the top 5 cheap drift cars to buy in 2020. Now, I bet you're thinking to yourself that I skipped 1 or 2 very obvious choices, but I bet there's a reason why I did that. However, if you think I missed one, or maybe there's something very regional that you can get for $5K or maybe less, let me know in the comments down below. Also, while you're at it, sound off if you want to learn more about the specifics behind popular drift and track day car chassis, like the go-to modifications, reliability upgrades, and stuff like that. Also, what cars interest you in general? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh yeah, and do the whole like, comment, subscribe, share this video, and share all my videos. You guys know the drill. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.